these workshops that we do are interactive. This one that I'm doing, I've done a lot of workshops in the past. I'm not prepared for this one. It's going to be spontaneous. The other thing is we're going to make it interactive. Okay, if there's any Americans on here, you might as well leave now because we're going to actually call you on your shit. And the other thing is as well, I have to do some disclaimers. I do this every time. I'm just a member of Narcotics Anonymous. I'm just somebody who used for a long time, had a really, really difficult time stopping, even a harder time trying to stop smoking. And now I've managed to amass some clean time. And the share and interactive and the statements and the things I'm going to say is as if I was talking to myself in treatment, because I went to, this is my disclaimer bits. This is, I went to treatment 8 times over a period of 10 years. I heard a lot of stuff in treatment, and a lot of the stuff I heard in treatment, I had either too much pride or I just didn't know how to go and ask and say, what does that mean? It's a bit like when somebody says, I'm in my feelings. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know, that's the other thing. Let me give some disclaimers, yeah? I will share. If that scares you off, you probably need cognitive behavioral therapy or something. I try not to share. I don't swear. I don't swear as much as I used to. The other thing is, if you're worried about triggers, this is not the workshop for you. Seriously, I have COPD. At one point, I'm going to be pulling out one of these and having a puff on it. So if you're going to get triggered by that, yeah, go on to the Pacific meeting or something. Yeah, so I'm Frankie, I'm an addict. I used for 27 years. I realized there's no class in drugs because I was just as powerless over tobacco as well as I was over smoking cannabis, as I was over the class A's that I was physically addicted to. The thing what I dropped on Paul earlier, just for fun, was we looked at the stopping and not the using, is a quote from our literature, from the basic text. Because what happens to a lot of people in treatment is they want you to look at the stopping. It's all about stopping. It's having a detox and stopping. Well, it took me 10 years. Please, if you're in treatment and you're listening to this, please listen to this bit. What we have to look at is why we use. What makes me an addict, what makes me different from some of my fellow addicts, but I also have the same problems. And also about the mindset. So I will talk about drugs. And like, for example, if you happen to be, say, sitting there in treatment, if you happen to be one of the Jericho boys sitting there, I can see you guys. I've been in those places quite a few times. If you happen to be sitting there and thinking, I'm not as sick as him, you are definitely in the right place. Because I used to sit in a lot of workshops and I used to go to a lot of different fellowships and a lot of different meetings. And I would sit there and I would listen to somebody share and I'd think, I'm definitely not as sick as that fucker. You know, it's like, do you know how sick that is to not think you're as sick as the other people you're in the meeting with? That's really sick. So to kind of get that out of the way, there's a lot of stuff around the mindset. Addiction's broken down into 2 categories. It was read for us at the beginning: obsession and compulsion. Obsession is the thought that overrides every other thought. You know, when I start thinking about using, I can't get it out of my mind. When I've used, I can't get it out of my mind. When I've been abstinent for a while and I relapse, there's no such thing as a lapse, by the way. When people tell you there's a lapse, no, they've used drugs, that's called a relapse. There's no such thing as a lapse. You know, I've just lapsed. You know, everyone who lapsed always ends up fucked up. While I'm touching on it, because I'm just spewing at the moment, every meeting I've ever been to in the 28 years I've been attending NA, the people who go outside during the meeting and smoke cigarettes while the meeting is on always fuck up. It's just something I've noticed over the years. The people who go to the Brixton meeting in South London, when they split the meeting, the ones who go downstairs and smoke outside before they go to the next meeting that's on the sharing meeting, they always fuck up. I don't know why. I personally think that when you get into a meeting, if you turn your phone off and you're present in the meeting and you go through the spiritual hysteria or the spiritual experience of being in the meeting, your mind's so focused on recovery and listening, you're not thinking about the bird you're banging, the bills you got to pay, how much money you got in your pocket, what you're going to watch later on, you know, or telly so shit, I'm going to watch Blade Runner again or something. You know, you're present. And the only time when they tell you about recovery, about being present in recovery, you know, you have to be present and in the moment. The present is the gift. The gift is the present. So to be present in the moment. The only other time I've been present in the moment is when I'm either about to have a lick on a crack pipe or when I'm having a boot. All the other times are I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to run out. I've got to get some more. It's not enough. I need more. That's my thinking. It's obsessive. I want more. I do this little skit, which some of you, well, most of you probably definitely heard, and it goes like this. And this is about the thinking. This is before recovery thinking, yeah? This is about the mindset. If Paul and I buy some gear, doesn't matter what it is, let's just call it gear, because that's another thing I had to learn if I can drop it into people who are in treatment. We don't say gear, and we don't say Terry, and we don't say tackle, and we don't say... What we say is we name the drug, because inside of us, they don't like this in NA. They don't like us, you know, it's not about how much or what you use. They don't like us to say it. But what I've learned, and it's just my experience, is if you name the drug, then you can feel the shame. Because I want to call the drug that I use the most, I don't want to call it heroin, because something inside me knows it's wrong to take heroin. I want to call it by some nickname or smother it in something. And so it's all about changing how you think. When you want a new way of life and you pick up a white key ring, it's about learning how to change how you think. And this is just amazing, because this has changed me into being able to be somebody to take responsibility. But before we get to that bit, Paul and I, we decide to buy a gram of gear. Yeah. So we buy a gram of gear. First off, I have to say to Paul, the dealer I've got, his gear's really fucking good. In fact, it's so good, this gear's going to kill you. Okay. But I can't introduce you to the dealer. You have to give me your half of the money and I'll go score. Okay. So I'll go score. Paul's fallen for the blag. I'll go score. I'll go score. So what I do is I tax the gear. I tax the gear and I put a bit in my pocket. So I've already got extra gear. I'll get back to Paul and I'll tell him that lie that drug addicts tell. The deals weren't that big, but the gear's really strong. Okay, the gear's blinding. It's fucking excellent, but the deals are not that big. Now, Paul's clucking, he doesn't know. He hasn't used for a while, so he just doesn't care. He just wants something, anything, just something, you know. Nutmeg, he don't care, just anything. So what I do is I say, here you go, Paul. I'm the genuine addict, yeah? Here you go, Paul. I'll give him the bag, no matter what it is. Tell him, put it on the mirror and cut it up, okay? Now, Paul puts it on the mirror and he cuts it up. Chop, 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 chop. Pair of us are both spinning around the room, looking at different angles to see which is the bigger pile, you know. Chop, 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 looking at different, you know, opening the curtains, making sure we can see the gear. Paul chops it up and I have to pick. Now, I've already stolen some, yeah, the addict tax. I've stolen some, put it in my pocket. This is about the thinking, yeah? Now, Paul's divided the gear into 2 piles and I have to pick one. So I'll pick the one on the left, but my mind, I don't know if you're like me, but my mind tells me that Paul's now got the big one, you know, because I'm obsessive. I want as much as I can get. I've already nicked some and he's let me pick the amount and I still think he's got more than me. And I'm not even in recovery yet. So, and then, of course, once I'm using, I start thinking this isn't enough. This is going to run out. I'm compulsive. We need to get some more. How can we get some more money? So we have all that going on and we think it's about the stopping. We think we need to stop using. We think if we go to treatment, stay abstinent for long enough, when we come out, we can either start serving up or we can go to college or something. It doesn't work like that. It took me 10 years to understand this. It doesn't work like that. See, one of the things that I learned, which is in our basic text, which is basically, if I can't control my addiction, how can I control my life? It's a quote from the basic text. Some of these things were really helpful to me because I thought just by being totally abstinent that I could start doing things. I could start getting my life together. I didn't realize that I had to change. And I had a succession of things that would happen to me. One of the things that I also learned was, can you think of something that that absolutely happens for you when you pick up? Something you can absolutely agree on happens every time. With mine is after a month, I start lying. While I'm in recovery, there's no need to lie. I can backtrack, little white lies, everything. I can be honest. Honesty is the antidote to our diseased thinking, it says in our literature, and that is true. So to try and be honest, I don't mean honest, that nonsense you hear people say in meetings where, oh yeah, I was given an extra £5 at the cash point or in Sainsbury's and I gave it back. It's like, don't be so stupid. You know, that's not the honesty we're talking about. The honesty we're talking about is honesty of self. There's a saying in the basic text, which is, do I learn to fully concede to my innermost self? And it sounds like Japanese. And what that means is, this is something which is a bit more than just the who is the addict reading. What it is if you don't believe you're an addict, that's when you need to get a sponsor and really work on it so you can have your diagnosis. Because if you don't believe you're an addict, there's something inside you that will not take this on board. So to change, you have to take it on board 100% and really, really believe. I'm not talking about having a belief in a higher power. I'm talking about believing that you actually have a diagnosis and believing you have to do something about it. Now, Paul, are we okay to have, say, 5 people just to kick off with, just for a laugh?
Sure, of course.
Who can give us some examples, if you'd put your hands up, who can give us some examples of hitting a rock bottom?
So here we go, Gillian. Just bring you in, Gillian.
And please, guys, there's no right or wrong answers. I just want to hear your experience. And don't just use anyone else's experience.
Yeah, and just a minute or 2 each, just so we can keep it moving.
Yeah, a couple of minutes. And if you start sharing, Paul will cut you off. Hey, Gillian.
You would as well. Yeah. I'm an addict. My name's Gillian. So hitting a rock bottom. So I think I'm doing all right. I'm going to a different fellowship. I'm creating absolute pandemonium in it. Taking Valium to go to sleep at night time and antidepressants to get up in the morning. Life's all right, I'm coping. I go into it in a chance passing. I've now got 4.5 ounce on me. It's going to last me, right? Now, keep in mind, I've no use for a bit, right? 9 days later, I'm buying somebody's methadone off them. I don't use methadone. For there, hospital, tubes coming out everywhere, absconded, under police arrest. For there, treatment 2 days later. I leave treatment the next day, and I'm using all the way up on the train, and I put myself out. That was my best efforts. Not to use, that was my best efforts. And I arrive home like, ta-da! And my ma says, oh, for fuck's sake. And I've got a plan. And thank God for that day to this day, something changed. That was my ultimate rock bottom, was on that train. Absolutely destroyed. Gemma. So unsafe was I. You know, like so unsafe was I. Phoning tappy people on a train and all that, you know, like really, really bad. That's my last rock bottom. And I wanted to die, believe me, because I could not stop on my own power. I had no idea what I was up against. And my family witnessed a lot. They did. Thank God they never walked away. I'll leave it there. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Gillian. I'll bring in Azan.
Thank you. Not sure what time it is there, but it's afternoon here. I'm just gonna say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, family. My name is Azan, definitely blessed with coming addict. Frankie, thank you for the question right there, man. And I think the key thing that you said was rock bottom, right? And rock bottom for me means that there's nothing left under that. Once I hit that bottom, there's no going back to it, right? And I guess one of the rock bottom for me would be with using mind altering chemicals, you know what I'm saying, drugs, because I have not gone back to that, you know what I mean? And that started because drugs kept taking me to jail. So part of my rock bottom with drugs became, I got tired of going to jail. You know, so I remember, you see my clean date is July 12th, July 11th, I reported to parole and told my parole officer, yo, I can't do this no more. He said, what are you talking about? I said, I'm using again. You know, because I wasn't at that place where I was robbing, stealing, or anything like that yet. I still had my job at the time and all of that, you know, but I knew what was coming next. Because every time I stopped using it, it wasn't because I went to a detox or a treatment program. I went to jail. Every time I stopped, and it wasn't by choice, I went to jail. So once I connected those two dots, right, I remember being in treatment and not wanting to stay. And the counselor said, yo, check your track record. And when I checked my track record, I said, I sell drugs, I go to jail. I use drugs, I go to jail. And that became my rock bottom with drugs, you know. But since I've been here, you know, I have had an opportunity to hit no more rock bottoms, but I started to hit spiritual bottoms. You know what I'm saying? With that, I got tired of the look on people's faces because of my defects of character. You know what I'm saying? I'm still hurting people because, of course, you know, they say we get here, we put down the drug, we lose the desire to use, then we find a new way to live. So now I'm hitting new types of bottoms, but I got to get tired of them. But the rock bottom, I love when you said that because there's nothing under that. There's no trap doors. There's no hitting rooms. You know what I'm saying? It's a rock bottom. That becomes my foundation. You know what I'm saying? So when I hit that foundation, my life that I live now is what makes that possible. That rock bottom that you're talking about, you know, with drugs. Because as long as I don't use a mind altering chemical, I got a shot with dealing with everything else. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you.
Thank you, Azam. Okay, we're going over to the Jericho girls to talk about rock.
Hiya. My name's Mary, and I'm an addict. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Mary.
Well, my latest rock bottom is getting clean for 1.5 years and getting a lot of good things back in my life, including my son, who was like put into kinship for 5 years. But the rock bottom comes with me like forgetting that I'm an addict, or stopping to believe that I'm an addict, and then believing the lie and relapsing and just losing it all over again. Sorry for laughing, but that's my my story of rock bottom. How do I mute it?
Brilliant. So We'll go to Viv. Thank you for that, Mary. 2 seconds, Viv. Can you unmute? There you go.
Eric, Viv, thanks
Hi,
for the
Viv.
meeting, Paul. My rock bottom was similar to, I was 3 years clean, went back out. 8 months later, the Narcotics Bureau called me up into their office, tracing my calls. I reach there. I see my dealer. I think he's there to, I think I'm there to identify him, but it's the other way around. He's there to identify me. And I see the cop pulling out an icicle. That's how it happens here in this country. And he's threatening me with an icicle. And I look out the window and I'm like, God, I've got myself back to exactly where I'd found myself a few years ago. That was mine. Thanks.
Thank you, Viv. It's always great to have you here. And Frankie, will we go to Jake before we move on?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Jake. How you doing?
Hey, Jake.
Hey, on fam. Jake, grateful recovering addict. I would say my rock bottom was I had a friend kill herself, and she hung herself, and that thought got in my head, and the compulsion, kept ringing in my head, because I'd wake up every day and I just didn't want to live anymore. And one morning I found myself thinking, I just couldn't get the thought out of my head, how does a belt hold you? How would it hold me? How does the knot work? And I just found myself with the belt around my neck, kind of stress testing it. And the thought in my head was I'm not actually going to do it, but when I stepped back and thought about the compulsion to use drugs, I would say the same thing about smoking weed or doing any kind of drug. I'm not gonna do that. The first thing I do in the morning is do that. So I think once I kind of put that together in my head, I was how much I didn't have control over the drug. I started realizing the connection of the compulsion to think about suicide was very close. It was a very close relationship. And I realized I might, even though I'm sitting here thinking I'm not going to do it, I wasn't sure anymore, so I had to get help. And that's why I'm here. And 157 days later, still here. So
Thanks, Jake.
Jake, well done.
Thank you. That's why it's a good idea not to keep pills in the cabinet or carry a gun. Yeah, because a bit like the comedian, some of you guys know Jim Jeffries, we all get a little bit depressed at times, especially when you're coming off the back of something. See, one of the things in NA, one of the things in treatment, which is really, really difficult, it's really, really difficult, is we've just had 4 people explain their rock bottoms, but they're all the same. But as we listen, they're all different. See, a rock bottom's not a circumstance. Because if it was, my life would have changed a lot earlier. My sponsor says it to me. He says, being in prison and being married to Bubba, that's not a rock bottom. That's not a rock bottom. Going to prison, being in a car crash, losing all your money, spewing your ring up, losing your girlfriend, they're not rock bottoms. A rock bottom is an inside, it's an internal thing. You'll know when you've had a rock bottom. Everyone's rock bottom's the same. They go, I can't fucking take this anymore. I can't do this. I can't do this. I had one of those. I was in the detox. I wanted to leave. I was crying in the shower so no one could see me. And I knew if I used once a start, one is too many, 1,000's never enough. That was my experience over and over and over. And I wanted to leave, but I knew I had to stay. And I wanted to leave, but I wanted to stay. And I hit this emotional rock bottom. And I knew that in myself, deep down in myself, I was an addict. And once I start, all bets are off. It all becomes fucked up over a very short period of time. that saying what they say where you go back to where you left off, that's true. But a lot of us, our tolerance is low and we kill ourselves. So there's a few things. Let's just flip it for a bit of fun. For those who haven't used for a while, so we can have some experience from people who haven't used, can you tell me something that you haven't done since you've been clean? I'll give an example with me. I'm 18 years clean after being NA for 28 years. And in that 18 years, I have never been sick in the toilet. I've never thrown up. I've never spoke to God on the big white telephone. So, Paul, can we have 4 people to give their examples of what they haven't done in recovery of what they used to do when they were using?
Okay, do you want to come back on that one? How have things changed? Any examples? Don't be shy, Rick. Just get you unmuted, Rick.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rick. I'm Great Recovering Addict.
Hey, Rick.
Well, for one thing, coincides with the last one, what I've not done. I've not tried to commit suicide for the 6th time this time. That was what I was going to try to tell before, because I did hit it. And the only, by the grace of God, that I woke up was 3 days later in the hospital. And somebody asking me, there must be somebody out there. And I said, yeah, all I can do is go like this. And that was my first dealing, you might say, with a higher power or believing in a higher power. But ever since then, I have not tried to commit suicide. I've also not been sick. And I used to get sick so often when I was using, you know, chronic bronchitis. I haven't had that. The flu. I've not had the flu now. And I just celebrated 8 years in the end of June. So I've not been sick like that ever since. And I found out, and my anxiety has gone down and everything. And when I stopped using the medications and the drugs, even though they're the same, I've not been, had any of those symptoms anymore. I've not treated my kids badly anymore since that's happened. And believe me, I've done that mentally, physically, spiritually, in every which way when I was using. I mean, physically by actually putting my hands on them. Even when I was smoking, and you talked about that, Frankie, in the beginning. Luckily now, it's been since last October that I've quit smoking. And you talk about being hard. I smoked for 57 years. And I'll tell you, I finally gave it up, and I'm still white knuckling it right now. And I use step 1 religiously, because nothing else has ever worked for me to quit smoking. If I see somebody here in Hollywood Squares here, I want to jump into your square and take your cigarette from you. That's how bad it is. If it was like that with drugs, no, I wouldn't be having that feeling. And I'm glad that obsession and compulsion is gone. But that cigarettes, man, is hell. Now, I used drugs for 47 years. I smoked for 57, and I'm 65. Do the math, and I'm only 8 years clean. So I've hit my bottoms. I just didn't realize until I did it with trying to suicide how much I affected other people. So to me, hopefully that's my last rock bottom, regardless, because like they say, every day, not using it is a successful day.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks very much.
Thank you,
Brilliant.
Rick.
Okay.
I was a late starter as well, Rick. I didn't start smoking till I was 8 years old.
Carletta, would you like to come in?
Hi, I'm going to make this very quickly. I don't steal from my children anymore. I don't sell their toys. I don't sell my stuff. I don't sell anything. As a matter of fact, since I'm clean 13 years, I'm paying my daughter's tuition. I'm actually helping my son with his rent like every damn month. But anyway, so listen, things do get better. So that's mine.
Brilliant, Carletta. Thank you. Great to see you. And Gillian, would you like to come back in?
My daughter just said to me, "You're no special anymore, Mum." In other words, like, see whatever MD else has said, she's like that. Remember, I thought it was just you that done all that shit. So, like, I still, I haven't had any need to lie about where my kids' things have went. I've no planned various different ways to end my own life. own purpose. To and against lists of reasons why they would be better off without me or no. Yeah, and I've no woke up and thought, who the fuck are you either? And where did I find you? And what was I on to have found you in the fucking first place? Not done that either.
There's another thing I don't do. When I was using, I used to hide money from myself. Now, remember, I was the guy who hid the money. I don't know if you lot have ever done that. You split your money up and you hide it different places. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. The other one is you buy something and you think, I'm going to save some till tomorrow. This is a classic, isn't it? You hear it in all the meetings. I'll save it till tomorrow. This bit, I'll save it until tomorrow. 1 minute past midnight, doesn't matter what part of the planet you're on, it's tomorrow, so you can use it. So it's just kind of standard, a lot of this stuff, you know. I'll tell you one thing I have in recovery, which is nice, and I just want to spread this before we look for another question, have some more interaction. When I was in treatment, I don't know if any of you guys have had this, because it's fucking infectious, but have you had a gratitude attack? Do you know what I mean? When you wake up in the morning, you bounce down to breakfast and everyone's fucking miserable and you're like, yeah, I'm alive. I feel alive. You know, then you got some idiot going around doing his TDs with the Hoover or something who's late, you know, but it's just that having a gratitude attack, there's nothing better than a gratitude attack. No line of Charlie can beat a gratitude attack, trust me. It's only, and you only get that privilege when you're in recovery, isn't it? You know? So, yeah, there's another thing as well, which I want to get over about addiction, what I learned this off someone a few years ago when I was in addiction. And when I was working, I'd started working on a flower stall and I was clean. I've been working for a while, earning some money, slowly take it easy, keep it simple, getting introduced back into the community. And this girl who came to NA came along and she was 10 years clean. And I was like in awe of anyone who had any clean time. And she said to me, she doesn't go NA anymore. I was like, okay. I said, why don't you go to NA anymore? She said she'd met a new girlfriend. She said, and she has a can at the weekends and everything's all right. Well, I said to her, well, you came to NA for 10 years. I said, and you wasn't an addict. And she turned around to me and said, Frankie, you know, shut your fucking mouth. She said, how dare you say I'm not an addict? I was really taken back by that. So I have to endorse my own bullshit. I have to believe I'm right. So I go in the text and have a look, you know, if you can use without any problems, if you can use with anything going wrong, then you don't fit the ticket. If she can have a drink at weekends and her life in 3 months' time doesn't start falling apart or she doesn't start calling it on, well, you wouldn't be an addict. Only addicts do that, don't they? Only addicts have the car crash, you know? It's very predictable. Our behavior is predictable with addicts. That's why when addicts go to prison, as I've been several times, you get the prison officers, they just sit up the end. And when they open the door, how do you spot the addict? They're the first one out the cell who's running around the landing. It's easy. It's not rocket science. Even the most stupidest prison officer can spot an addict. You know, it's very, very easy. Right, let's have some more questions. Let's go to, for example, has anybody heard about social acceptability? You know, when you come to NA, social acceptability does not equal recovery. Okay. Can anybody give me any examples when they've believed that they've got recovery because they've got more acceptance in society or they got more acceptance with their family? See, I would get clean. I'd tell my mum I'd get clean and she would think that I was cured, it was finished. But the truth was, I hadn't done enough work on myself. Any examples?
Is there anyone in Jericho? You got
Social
your hand? Yeah.
Acceptability does not equal recovery.
Anyone got has clean time?
Jericho boys are up first.
Yeah, get you unmuted.
It's all right.
I'm Chris, I'm an addict.
Hey, Chris.
That's a good in social acceptability. And it does not equal recovery. There's been many times I've been going to meetings for NA for 15 years or so. I've put down the hard drugs, the drugs that were causing us all the problems, but I've substituted it for cannabis and alcohol because I was disillusioned, thinking, again, everybody smokes hash, everybody drinks, and they're okay, so I can do it. But I didn't know then what this disease really was. And I thought it was socially acceptable to be a hash smoker and to drink alcohol. Eventually, I put the hash down and I was just smoking, I was drinking alcohol. And I got to a stage in my life where I wasn't even drinking the alcohol, but my disease was so cunning that it still told me that I had to have a tin of beer in the fridge when I finished my work so I could hear that shh, the hits in the pot. That done me. I was fine with that. I didn't drink that tin. But that was, to me, my addiction was still active. But it was socially acceptable because I wasn't drinking alcohol. I passed my test, passed my driving test, and that's why I didn't drink and stopped drinking alcohol. But I still needed that shh because of the feeling that it gave us. It was still a mood changing thing for me because I'd come home from my work, I would open that tin and it would just shh, and it would give us a feeling. So, but socially acceptable in the eyes of normal people, but for us addicts, that kept my disease alive. In hindsight, I've only understand that with hindsight. But I picked up my 30 days yesterday.
Well done, Chris. That's amazing.
Chasing that for 15 years. 15 years for this wee thing.
30 days and 1,000 nights.
Yeah. So, no, I woke up with an attitude of gratitude yesterday. Gratitude, on a high with gratitude. So I put my hand up a bit premature there, but no, the socially acceptable, could have jumped on that as well. So that's great. But thanks for letting us come in and share that.
No problem.
Thank you.
Right, we're going to go to Jericho, girls.
Hi, I'm Leslie. I'm an addict.
Hi, Leslie.
Mine was kind of similar to what that guy was talking about just before. You know, stopped using, went to a treatment centre, got clean, didn't look at myself, just was clean and that was it. But because I thought I went to college, I had, you know, I had increased my value in society, the way people looked at me, you know, felt an outside perspective. Everyone looked, it was, you know, I was doing great, and it was like passing your test and getting your car and getting a nice wee house and stuff like that. And then before you know it, like drifting away from meetings because I've cracked it, you know. I'm socially accepted now. You know, I'm not looked down upon anymore. Do you know what I mean? So, but no doubt, we know looking at myself took me right back down the same roads and lost everything to where I'm sitting back in a treatment centre again. So, aye, thanks anyway for letting me speak.
Thank you for coming in. Great to hear you. And Jake, just get you unmuted.
Hey, Jake, grateful recovering addict. Yeah, I can relate to this. Before I came into the rooms, I think my career would be an example. To a lot of extent, I'm an artist, and I've done a lot in my career. I mean, you know, Prince William owns my work. You know, I've done a lot of stuff, done a lot of big, you know, stuff. And like, when I came into these rooms, if you looked at my bank account, like you'd just be like, well, you wouldn't be able to make the connection. It was like, basically, I just threw it all away. And amazingly enough, like they keep saying, you know, it's like if I start using, all the stuff that I've gained right now will just start going away. And as soon as I got into the rooms, it was like my career like literally turned back around. And I'm like slowly kind of getting out of the debt that I had. But yeah, like basically, I thought since I had some, you know, in my head, you know, some sort of, you know, artistic fame, if you will, and was getting clients, and the money and the prestige kind of thing blinded me from, you know, I was putting all my faith in the drugs and didn't have a, you know, a higher power. So anyway, not to, you know, get into the sharing and whatever, but I'm just saying, like, I can relate to that. Was definitely something that blinded me. Like my success, I thought I was good, you know, my success, I got some money in the bank, and, you know, all that money continues to just keep going if you keep down that route. And it sure enough did. I was like $0 in my bank account when I entered NA, and thank God it's all turning around. Anyway, thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you. See, one of the things which I got mixed up with recovery was I thought we had to have a belief system same as other people, because some people were having God moments and some people were having awakenings about behavior and so on. That doesn't matter. See, not everyone believes what I believe, and my belief doesn't require people to believe what I believe. All I have to know is what works for me. Okay, because I know what's wrong with me. That's probably the most important thing I have to get, especially get that from a sponsor. Treatment push me in the right direction, but I need to get that identification. I need to have that, you know, for example, the identification. I don't know if any of you guys did this. I would have my money to pay my rent, and I would spend it on drugs. I would steal something off a member of my family and go and pawn it with the belief system that I was going to get it out when I got my benefit, and then I could return it. We have all these different things that kind of go on for us. That can seem quite sickening to somebody who comes into recovery who hasn't had to steal or who hasn't been to prison. But there's that thing. I remember going to one of these really expensive treatment centres and sitting there with a guy who had an ounce of crack in his safe at home. And he believed that after being in treatment when he left, that he was going to be okay. And I asked him, mate, how come you're really wealthy? How come, you know, friend of Jamie Blandford, how come you're in the fucking treatment centre? And he said, my cardiologist at the hospital had sent me there. He said, but I'll be okay once I leave. I was thinking to myself, how on earth are you not going to go home and not break a little bit off of that? You know, it's impossible. So you have to change how you think. Through doing the step work, through understanding what powerless means, which is it's not a good result, is it, understanding powerless? It just means I can't use anymore. That's it. Game's over, finished, no more. Same thing as if somebody's a diabetic. If you have the disease diabetes, the person normally takes it on board when they get the diagnosis. When you're an addict, if you go to a doctor and he says, oh, by the way, you know, you can't save anything till the morning. It gets a minute past midnight. You use all your gear up. You know, you steal off your friends to fund your habit. You know, you'll even sell your children's toys. You know, looks like you're an addict. We go, no, tell me I've got cancer at least. Don't tell me I'm a fucking addict. The last thing people want to be told is that they're addicts. I don't know what that's about, but we have all these different things that we go through, all these different scenarios. And we have to understand that powerless equals no power. I have no control over using. The same thing with someone who's a diabetic. And we use the example of a diabetic because it's a disease. There's many other diseases, and if you look up disease says if left untreated becomes chronic and fatal. Well, that's the same thing with addicts. It's just that we can't predict the fuck up rate. If we're an addict and we're left, you can see plenty of people in the park who are fucked up, and you see people all on missions running around town, any seaside resort, all over the place. If left untreated, we die. If left untreated, it's jails, institutions, death. Now, when you're in Narcotics Anonymous, one of the things that used to bug me, I'm 60 years old. I tell people I'm 60 years old. You don't find many addicts that are old. I've got bad blood pressure, goes through the roof. I've got cholesterol. I've got COPD from too much burning of the foil and too many roll-ups and smoking since I was 8 years old and all that sort of stuff. You know, you get the consequence of that. My sponsor had a heart operation about a year ago, and they said to my sponsor, if he hadn't have stopped smoking 20 years before having his heart operation, they wouldn't be able to do it. And it's like, wow. We don't understand the consequences. That's why it's so important when we get into recovery to start understanding the step 2 stuff. A power greater than myself can help me recover. You know, what is a power greater than myself? The basic text is a power greater than ourselves, because in the basic text, they put in all the suggestions for addicts that work. They didn't put any suggestions in the basic text that didn't work. That's why in the basic text, it doesn't say it's okay to sleep with newcomers or with old timers. You know, we have this thing about recovery paedophiles in NA. When you're a bloke, you have to be really, really careful. There's a lot of predatory women with about 20 years clean. And it's, yeah, I've had to be careful myself. It's dangerous. But, you know, the main thing around a power greater than myself is I have to learn to have identification and get the experience of other addicts. What worked for you, will it work for me? I have to do this stuff. You know, I have to find out what works. Reading the literature works, because there's ways and means of identification with the literature. Finding a sponsor who understands you and you can relate to is really, really important. If your sponsor's kicking your ass and being a bit of a bully, well, maybe he's a bit of a bully. You know, try and find someone you can connect with, and it is not easy, but we persevere, and that's what being in recovery is about. Can anyone give me an example of a difficulty they've had in trying to get a sponsor? Can we have 4 people, Paul, please? Remember, a difficulty in finding a sponsor, because it's best the fellowship know about this, because the fellowship seem to think it's easy.
Okay, can I have some hands up, please, on sponsorship? And you'd like to come back in? Oh, Midtown Matinee meeting. I'll get your name changed. Let's get you unmuted.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't change my name.
What's your name?
Jarvis, Jarvis.
Got you, Jarvis. I'll do that now.
Welcome, Jarvis.
Welcome.
Okay, I'm Jarvis and I'm an addict. I wasn't gonna share, but you know, this is a good topic because people need to know. We always talk about, you know, when we get here, get a sponsor, get a sponsor, get a sponsor. But I very seldom hear people share the process of getting that sponsor and what they had to go through. I have 9 years clean in 2 months, right? And I came in here and you know, I had a problem with asking for help, number one. So if you're new, please listen up. I had a problem asking for help. And then, number one, I didn't want to be here. The disease was really, I was really, you know, in a drug psychosis. I'm big and everyone hates me, right? So my thing is, I came here, they told me to get honest. So I say, like, I'm a black, you know, I'm black, I'm bald-headed, I'm gay. I asked 12 men to sponsor me, 12 men. And all of them said no. And I said to myself, wow, they told me to come here and get honest, and then you get honest and then people reject you. But the one thing I remembered, like I remember doing active addiction, I'm the addict who went through any lengths to get the next one. I could go to another country to get just one. That's how desperate I was. But you guys told me to chase your recovery like you chased the drug. And see, I came in here and my life was at stake. I was either, if I needed to do what you guys suggested or die. Once again, take the suggestions or die. Those who fail to remember are doomed to repeat, they say. So you used the word persistent. I stayed persistent, the spiritual principle of perseverance. And my desire to stay clean was stronger than my desire to use. So I continued to ask men to sponsor me because I couldn't do this on my own. And then finally, I get a guy, I tell him everything about myself. I'm a gay man, he's a heterosexual man. As a matter of fact, I introduced him to his wife. We have this wonderful, wonderful relationship. So if someone, you know, even in the IP, it says that someone may reject you because they may say, I have too many sponsees or blah, 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 blah. But just don't give up, persevere, you know, be consistent and get yourself a sponsor by any means necessary. And like the brother said, don't get a guy who's aggressive and tells you what to do. We give suggestions here. An addict is nothing but another recovering addict who can guide you through the 12 and 12. I came in here not knowing too much, but I put a sponsor on a pedestal. And I remember they said this is a two-way street. So the first time my sponsor with double decades called me up and shared something with me, Jarvis, what would you do? I sat here crying. I'm like, oh my God, I got like 2 years clean and you're asking me for something? But no one's, they say no big U's and no little I's. But anyway, I'm Jarvis and I'm an addict with a sponsor. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Jarvis. Okay, let's go to Jericho. Hello.
Hi, I'm Leslie, an addict.
Hey there, Leslie.
It's just two quick examples. And one of the first ones was I'd asked this lassie to sponsor me, and she gave me these conditions, you know, like, for instance, join a group, blah, 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 whatever, you know, certain conditions. And I had an excuse for every single condition that she'd said. And I remember being in my house and she'd says, you know, I'm going to go to the toilet, and by the time I come back, tell me what group you're going to join. And I actually thought she was joking. And she come back and I kind of laughed. And she says, she sacked me, you know. She says, you're not willing. And she says, so I'm going to leave. And she left. And I remember feeling so tiny. But because I felt so tiny, I projected it onto her. We saying I didn't identify with her anyway because hers was an eating disorder and I don't identify with that. But I identify with any addiction, you know what I mean? Any addiction. And then another one where I was really willing, and I had kind of watched this woman for afar for quite a long time, and I really, really, really liked what I seen. You know, what she had in recovery, just the kind of person, the way she lived her life, everything about her. And I built up the confidence to ask her, and just unfortunately, she had too many people that she was sponsoring at that time. So I was so gutted that I had built myself up just to this one person that I didn't have, my mind wasn't open to anybody else. And needless to say, I relapsed again. You know, it's embarrassing that my story is continually relapsing. And NA for over 20 years, and I'm just now sitting in a treatment centre, and I'm like 3 days clean.
Well done, Leslie.
and I'm sitting here, my voice is shaking, my face is scarlet, but I need to do this to get well. So that's my example. So thanks for letting me speak. Thanks.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Great
Thank
to
you
hear you.
so much. In experience of sponsoring people, and from my own personal experience, people come into recovery and they get really enthusiastic, and they come out of treatment and they get a sponsor, they get a commitment at a meeting, they do all the things they're meant to do, they go to meetings on a regular basis. And then what happens is, after a couple of months, the problem goes away. So they start slowing down on their step work. They're still in recovery. They might be with a gang now. They might be hanging out, shaved head, down the calf, go to the meeting, you know, all hanging out in the big gang. Trust me, I've been there, you know. And what happens is the enthusiasm, the desperation, you know, that thing what it says in the reading, it says, if you want what we have to offer and are willing to make the effort to get it, then you're ready. You know, only in desperation do we seek help. But we have to keep that going. We have to, it's a change, we have to keep that going. It took me 10 years to learn that. So I have to get on with it. And let me tell you something which a lot of older people won't agree with me in NA. The steps are all about me. How I change is by helping other people. If I'm thinking about me in a step 4, and I come out after I've done my step 5, I'm not having a spiritual awakening. What I'm experiencing is relief. It's relief. I've let go of something. I'm not having an awakening. I'm not having a change of heart, a change of spirit, having a different perspective on life. I'm feeling good about myself. It's just relief. And that's only quarter of the way through. This thing with doing the step work is quite easy. You do the same thing Barbara Cartland as she writes her books. You do half an hour every day. You write something down. Eventually you get it all done. The gift comes when you can help somebody. Honestly, when I was first doing the step work, and I went through the steps so many different ways in so many different styles, step working guide twice, Hazelden, done the RAPS program, blah, blah, blah. I thought they made me well. What changed my perspective on everything and helped me grow up was when I started to sponsor people. And just like the gentleman said earlier, which I really, really loved, what Jarvis said earlier, the first time I asked a sponsee, what do you think you should do? It blew me away, because there's an honesty, and we don't get so confused in the head. There's an honesty with early recovery. Enjoy it, guys. Enjoy your early recovery. Say what you think. You'll find out about yourselves. Do that stuff. Paul, how long have we got? We got time for more questions? Or
we've got about another 20 minutes left, I think. 15,
have
20
we?
minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say 15
That's
minutes.
good. Paul, do you want to throw a question in? Have you got one? Have you been thinking about one?
But you know what's been coming to mind. Let's is the. I think there's a lot of we were talking about it at the beginning of the meeting, is the higher power stuff. So this is to you to maybe throw a question out there. So it's maybe one of the most difficult areas for me personally to have found. I mean, without getting bogged down in it. I once heard someone say that God is just, which is all over the basic text, God is just a word for the power that helps me stay clean, which really kind of appealed to me. I don't know. How do we formulate that into a question, maybe, Frankie?
That's very hard, because when I first came into recovery, the God of my understanding has changed. And I have a God of my understanding. However, I'm an atheist. I was born and baptized a Catholic, but I don't have a God of my understanding. So how do I have a recovery God? That's the question. Is the God that I have in recovery it's not a religious program. So how do I use God? How does that work for me? So the God of my understanding, sometimes, you know what? I have to speak to myself. or I have to speak to whatever's there. Sometimes I just have to let it out. Sometimes I can share in a meeting. Does anybody else want to come in? Does anyone want to share about talking to their self? Does anybody else want to share about the God of their understanding? It's not allowed to be religious. All it has to do is, how does it help you in recovery? Sometimes I say, for fuck's sake, Frankie, you've done it again. Can you please help me to not do this again? That's part of my step 7 stuff at times. I'm being honest. I know what works for me. Please put your hands up and have a stab at this. We'll have 4 people, please.
Okay, Jericho.
Yeah, I'm Jamie, an addict.
Hey, Jamie, how you doing?
All right, mate. Yourself?
I'm doing great.
Good stuff. I just thought I'd come in with the higher power thing, getting mentioned and stuff like that. And it's not religious or anything, but when I was in the care homes and stuff like that, I was about 12-year-old, and I found out that my father died a massive heart attack with a drink, and I was about 12-year-old I was, and I started smashing the room up and punching myself and etc. and stuff like that, and then I felt like an overwhelming feeling came into my body. Do you know what I mean? To try and calm us down, and for that time, I've called it a god. You know what I mean? And to be honest, it's been the only consistent and caring, loving thing that I've had in my life for years. You know what I mean? But I've denied it many times, and stuff like that, and went back to it when I'm needing something, needing to pray for something or something like that. So that's just where I'm at, but so leave it there.
You know,
Jamie.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that, because that for me carries through, yeah? Because if you look at step 3, okay, because I'll give you my understanding of step 3, and you guys don't listen to my bullshit. You get your own experience. With step 3, it says, we made a decision to turn our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Now, thank you for that, mate, because understood is a past tense word. One of the things my sponsor pointed out to me when I was in recovery, and I was saying to him, well, this God thing, I can't get my head around it. He said, try thinking of the times you spoke to God in the past. And as I started to think through, it's like basically, please don't let the judge fucking put me down. You know, please let the dealer take it. It's $2 short. Let him take it. You know, I really need the gear. All these times, please don't let me get nicked. I had a dialogue going on with, as it says in the basic text, whatever it is there. And that's what helped me. I managed to be able to voice myself. One of the problems addicts have is being able to voice themselves. I don't mean being ego arrogant and being an alpha male, wanting to knock people up in the air. I mean, what we say, talking in my truth, with my honesty. If I want to touch somebody, if I really, really want to become friends with the member of the opposite sex, or if I really want to know how my family feel, I'll get as honest as I can and I speak from the heart. And one addict talking to another is without parallel. When you talk from the heart, when you're honest to the bottom of your stomach, when it's right in there, it can't be denied. Truth can't be denied. It doesn't matter who tries to hijack the truth. Truth can't be denied. It's really, really important that everybody gets an understanding of what works for them in recovery. It's okay to have a lot of these other spiritual practices. One of my sponsors was a Buddhist. He was one of the most entertaining and knowledgeable men I know, and he's really helped me a lot with the step 11 stuff. However, I have to get and find something that works for me. And it's a journey. It's a beautiful journey. And it's something there was a time about 5 years ago, went up to Aberdeen and was outside Aberdeen, and was just looking, and I'm a Cockney from London, and I'm looking around, and it's like, it blew me away. There's times when I've been to California and I've looked around, and I seem to get this thing where when I have visions of valleys and stuff like that, I really feel in connection with the planet, with the people and everything. And I'm at stillness. I'm there with it. The last thing I would think of fucking it up by using. So I haven't thought using for 18 years. It's the last thing. Why would I want to fuck this up? You know, and that's what's happened with me. So I would say it's working. It's always work in progress with step 3. I'll share briefly what helped my step 3 first off, because I got stuck with that God word, and that God word messes people up and it stops addicts from moving forward. I changed it to we made a decision to turn my thinking and my actions over to the care of recovery. Making a decision to turn my thinking and my actions over to care of recovery. That's my will and my lives. I don't need to argue over what my will is, whether I've got free will or not. Free will is a gift. Is it free? I don't know. You know, my lives. Why does it say lives twice in the step? I've got this addict brain that doesn't switch off. I wake up in the morning, even today, and before my eyes are open, it's already talking. It's already talking. That's why I have to learn how to calm my mind down. I have to learn how to help other people. And with all of that, I have the gift of life, something I wanted so much. You know, the steps have really, really helped. So can we just have some people just throw some questions in, Paul? Because I'm drying up and throwing questions at you guys. Do you want to throw some questions in?
Yeah. Does anyone have any?
Because you can always fire one at Carletta or someone like that, you know, and call Azim, you know, on their shit, whatever.
Carletta, do you want to come in on what we've just been talking about the kind of the journey to understanding God, or why we need an any God or anything like that? Okay.
Okay, hi again. I know that in the Just for Today, it does state that the way that by sharing our trials and tribulations, and it says these words in the Just for Today pamphlet, that is the way of expressing God. Because if you're going to share, if you're talking about something, you're looking for an answer, you're looking for solace. And in order to get that, you have to release it. I heard the speaker say that sharing is releasing some of the feelings that you have, and you know, you will get the answer. You can't just, the secrets kill. So if you're feeling bad, just say, I'm feeling bad, and somebody, because we all, it appears to be, see, I believe in the God of my understanding, because I tried to commit suicide, all of my family. There's been so many instances where I knew that it couldn't be me. Let's put it this way. Do you remember when you tried to stop using? You know, oh, I'm not going to use today. I'm not going to use today. And somebody knocks on the door with a little crumb, and here you are off to the races again. It was only something higher than yourself that brought you into the rooms of nothing. You couldn't even stop using. He said he put money away. So did I. And I'm looking for it. So we were out of our minds. So something had to restore us back to sanity. I don't care what you choose it, but don't let it be you. Because the second step says you were out of your daggone mind. That's what the second said. You were so crazy. You didn't even know reality. Something had to bring you back. So there is something there, something. The second step calls it higher power. The third step calls it God. I don't care what you call it, but make sure you got it, because the world will rock you. You think because I got 13 years that it's easy out here? Hell no. There's times that I fall to my knees. The 11 steps is prayer and meditation. You're going to have to speak to somebody, and it won't be a human. It will not be your sponsor. I'm just saying. My brother's dead in a crack house, half naked. What are my sponsors going to do? I had to get on my knees and say, please help me clean. So you better get something. I'm just saying, and I know the speaker will vouch for that. You better get something other than your sponsor and us. Because when them dimes come, you're going to need to fall on your knees and pray.
Thanks, Carletta. Just before I bring Jake back in, it's just before we'll take Jake, and then I'm just wondering, is there anyone in any of the treatment centres who have a question for Frankie before we kind of finish? Is there anything kind of confusing you about what you've heard tonight? Is there any just thoughts, random thoughts? You too, Chris, just anything that's come into your head that you think, don't quite understand that, or I'd like to get a little bit more clarity on that. Just anyone. So let's bring Jake in, and then we'll go to the Jericho guys.
Hi, Jake, grateful recovering addict. Just to touch on the higher power thing. I didn't have one. I didn't believe in God really. It was before I came in to the meetings. And the way I kind of, and I was turned off by the God talk when I came into the meetings. But the way I kind of got wrapped my head around it was I replaced God with love. And, I heard somebody, say, I love you. And I was like, I didn't believe anybody at first. And then I was listening to somebody and I saw myself in that somebody and I felt love for them. I wanted them to succeed. I didn't have anything to gain from them succeeding, but I felt it. And I felt myself. And then somebody said it again, like, I love you. And I heard myself in my head say, like, I believe you. And then that's when it kind of clicked. It was like, I heard myself say, I believe. And then it sort of clicked, it was like this non-tangible thing, like believing that tomorrow is going to happen. I have faith in that. That's kind of like what I think about, like when I love something, when I choose a loving choice, when I believe in love versus the negative, it always seems to work out for me. So I just tend to replace God with, higher power. And I think of that like in terms of love and just like, if you're choosing love, if you're choosing the light, you're going to grow. And if you kind of like stay in the dark, it's going to be the exact opposite, just in my opinion. So that's kind of how I started wrapping my head around. And the other thing too was, if you lean on people are mortal. These people are around and you're always leaning on their shoulder, like telling them your problems. You have to be prepared for those people to die because they will, or they might get busy or whatever. And I can't have the compulsive loop going around in my own mind. So when there's meditation and then there's prayer for me, and prayer is kind of like meditating with a question and a purpose, and it kind of gets it like out of me, to something outside of my head is kind of how, I don't know. That's just my whole take and my understanding in the short time that I've started having a relationship with my higher power. Thank you.
Fantastic, Jake. Thank you so much. And then we'll go to Jericho. We'll get you unmuted, Chris.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for that. Sorry, these 2 seconds. My view of God's changed over the years as well. He was a bastard at one point. I didn't think there was a God at one point. I thought it was just bad people. There was good people as well. I'm not going to talk about the experiences I've had on that subject. I'm going to talk about my understanding of it. Frankie, you said try and not keep it religious. I don't know, if this is going to sound religious, but they say God created heaven and earth, this, that, the next thing, right? Let's take the heaven and earth out of it and just the God created, God in creation. Like that lassie from America was saying there, when she gets a feeling and she shares it with something, with somebody or something happens. Creation. It creates a thought or a feeling in that person that she shared, and that person will come back, possibly with an answer or a solution. That's creation. For me, that's God at work. To say God speaks through people, for me, just in my experience, the God of my understanding speaks to me through music, people, smells, nature, situations, people, places. I think I've said that. This is my God at the back is. My worst thinking got us into a lot of trouble. My best thinking got us into Jericho. God and creation. What's your thoughts and views on that, Frankie, if you didn't mind, is asking?
Yeah.
I'll just leave that.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. My thoughts and views on that are quite simple. The God of my understanding is everything. It has to be. It can't be a specific thing. It has to be everything. Okay? And it's more than I can understand. And I think Jake, for me, nailed it, because God basically is love. And it's my attitude towards it. The problem I have as a recovering addict is that my mind thinks obsessively. And that's what my problem is. Because once I start, it's a bit like dropping an acid. You know, I start off by thinking about one thing, and then next thing I know, tea is the answer to all the problems in the world and the monetary system. You know, it's like, boom, my head goes, because I'm obsessive and I think. All I fucking do is think. So I'll give an example. I went to a meditation thing recently, which was mindfulness meditation. It's all right for the civilians. When they're sitting there and the man starts off the meditation, he says, empty your mind. I don't know if you're an addict. Have you tried that? It's fucking impossible to empty your mind. I'm constantly thinking, think, empty your mind, he says. All these people are and balancing. I have to learn to slow the insistent stream of thoughts to stop, is what it says in our basic text. So I totally get it, Chris. What it is I have to flip it over and say, how does the God of my understanding work in recovery? I'll coin a phrase what my sponsor uses, which helped me. He says, whether it's God, you know, Buddha, Allah, it doesn't matter what it is, they all send their addicts to Narcotics Anonymous to get well. It doesn't matter. We just have to find out how it works for us. It doesn't matter. And that way I can sit in meetings with people who have a totally different understanding, and it doesn't really matter if they're religious or what it is. It's just as long as you tell me how your God works for recovery, because that's what we're all here for. Our common bond is recovery. You know, I love you guys. I love everyone in the meeting. I love any addicts I meet. You're fucking hard work, but I love you all. You know, I work really hard at getting here. You know, I'm not going anywhere. I've had the best life I've ever had. In the past 2 months, my father got dementia, got into a home. Then he died 2 weeks later. I had to organise his funeral. My mum's devastated. She's fallen over, broken her hip. And my 2 granddaughters are going to Burnham-on-Sea. I'm going to meet them in 2 days' time to give them £50 note each, you know, so I can be the best granddad in the world. This recovery is making me take responsibility. I'm not thinking about going out at it. I'm not trying to work out the angles. I'm not going through Sainsbury's thinking, can I stick some salmon down my pants? You know, I'm not doing all that stuff. You know, I've got responsibility. I've got a life. I've got a wife. Fucking hell. I've got my own wife, not somebody else's. You know, I've had a wife for 8 years. All of that has helped me through the God of my understanding in recovery by being able to communicate. Communication's the answer. So I really appreciate the question, Chris. It's a big, heavy question. And it's just one of those ones that's, you know, how does it work for me in recovery? How does the God of my understanding work for me? And mine is my thinking, my actions. I turn over to recovery with the wholeness of love. Because love's the answer. Always has been. Always has been. Thank you.
Great, Frankie. So we'll just, I certainly feel like I've got a lot more clarity on that following that discussion. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Chris. You just blew me away. Azam, do you want to come in and you'll be like last comment or last observation or comment of the evening?
Okay, thank you, Paul. And again, it's good to be here. And I see all you people that's here. It's wonderful, right? You know, and I've been listening, man, and I love the concept of this because there are so many, right? And And I myself, I remember at the age of 14, right? And I want to share with experience. So we always got to always keep an open mind. And basically an open mind means not that we agree with someone and sharing, but be open to their perception and their views. You get what I'm saying? So I remember at the age of 14 becoming an atheist, not believing in nothing, and what made it worse was I started calling myself God, right? I said I had something to do with creating the sun, the moon, the earth, and this is what I was told, like, yo, you God, you know what I'm saying? And I lived like that for 11 years, right? I remember being in jail in 1989, facing 7.5 to 15 years in jail, right? On a violation, I just bought already, it's like terrible, right? So now I'm in jail, calling myself God, but I can't get out. I'm saying, but hold up. You God, you created the sun, the moon, but you can't get beyond the bars. You know what I'm saying? And then it was only because the stuff, when I was able to look at my life and the things that I want to say, not so much survivors, but able to escape, right? Because there's individuals that did not even 25% of what I did when I was under active addiction, and they're no longer here to talk about it, right? So I started to say it had to be something, right? I didn't know what I was going to call it, but it had to be something, Now, in relation to the second step, I love what it says, because it says you could call it the group, you could call it the program, or you could call it God. And then it talks about how it's not a matter what you call it, but the power behind the force that helps you, right? So if I call it the group, you know what I'm saying? They said the hope was hearing other people's experience. So it ain't got to be that deep where it's that, listen, I'm not using drugs anymore. And that's the miracle in itself, right? And now the change, right, when it says we could be restored to sanity, the change was just basically believing if I need to be restored to sanity, I must be insane. Now check it out. When you call it the program, the acronym that they told me was program stands for people relying on God to relay a message, right? And then it said, if you want, you could call it God. But again, you know what I'm saying? It's to the individual, but like anybody can recover in this program, because at the end of the day, if you look at our steps, it's not so much that the God that's written in a step, but the spiritual principles that you got to apply to your life in order to live without the substance, right? So when I got into a relationship, man, it was like over time, and I love what someone said, like, it doesn't matter what it is, like we are all on this journey. Let's say, for instance, I'm gonna close with this, right? And I'm sure all of y'all seen The Wizard of Oz. I'm sure y'all got it out there, in Scotland, right? Mm-hmm. You had the lion, you had the Tin Man, you had Dorothy, and you had the Scarecrow. All four of them was in search of something different, but they was all on the same journey. All of them was on a yellow brick road to get to some wizard that probably can help them, not knowing, check it out, with each and every one of y'all that's here right now, that the journey was in you already, right? The journey is already in you. And you come and you see these other individuals. And what hope stands for now, for us that have the experience, it stands for helping other people elevate. How do I help the next person? You ain't got to believe the way I believe, but the main thing we all got to believe together, and I don't care who your God is, you believe in God or not, the first thing we got to believe is this: staying clean must come first.
Yeah.
That becomes the foundation that he talked about earlier, the rock bottom of staying clean must come first. If you stay clean, regardless of what goes on in life, what comes down the pipe, staying clean must come first. And I'm telling you, staying clean is like imagine this. They say clean time is so precious. Check this out, Paul, right? They say clean time is like you're on a horse, right? And you winning in the middle of the race, right? Why would you jump off the horse? Frankie, I'll be number 18. I don't care. I ain't got to be first, second, or third. I'll be number 8. They'll be like, here come a Zam at 18. But I'm staying on the horse, man. My clean time, I'm staying on the horse. I'm a winner as long as I stay. They said a clean day is a one day. It's a successful day. So the God thing, eventually, if you don't believe it, come around, just stick and stay. That's the main thing, stick and stay. That power will take care of itself. The power is in the room, the most powerful vehicle. to carry this message and stand inside the group. And if you come in the circle, check it out, become part of the square. Understand me? Because you could come in a circle, but if you don't become part of the square, because it's self-God, you ain't got to call it God. Say God can be good all in the direction. Or get honest or die. See that G-O-D? Get honest or die. So if you get here, just get honest with where you at with that, man. And with that said, man, I just need to come in and say something. I appreciate y'all, man. Love and respect.
Thank you, Azam. Thank you so much. Frankie,
let me chuck one in there for some of the religious guys, just so we don't exclude you. How about Get Out Devil? That can help, you know. So, you know, thank you, and thank you for the acronyms. You know, happy our program exists. You know, hope. There's so much of that stuff. You know, you need all of this stuff for when you get relationships. Yeah, you need it all for when you get relationships. So saying this to Paul the other day, really exciting love affair turns into outrageous nightmare, recovery in peril. My sponsor gave me that. It's not mine. Nothing I do is original. Everything I've learned is from my predecessors. I'm really grateful you asked me, Paul. I hope this worked for some people. It's good to see Tyler on here again. And thank you guys for, you know, making a wonderful meeting for me. And I'm showing you the answer. Help other people. Help other people. Don't pick up wise words of the previous sponsor, as in, don't pick up, help other people. Your perspective on reality will change. Thank you.